Hello, everybody. Today is Saturday, December 15th, and we're bringing you Block Digest number 147 at block height 553,972. So what's up, Rick?
Oh, nothing much, man. Just been kind of looking at the news. It's kind of going this way and that. But yeah, it looks like things kind of took a deeper, darker turn this morning. But we'll talk about that in a sec. What's going on, Janine? How are you doing this morning?
I'm coming to you from a bunker, but as of 20 minutes ago, I was at a restaurant talking to a waiter who knew about Bitcoin.
Fancy that.
Sweet deal. So I guess before we really get into it today, kind of wanted to make a nod to somebody. Some really shitty news broke today. Lucky Green, one of the old school cypherpunks from the 90s, made a Facebook post and a tweet and let everybody know that apparently sometime in the last week, Timothy C. May passed away at his home. And everything, before conspiracies get spinning, everything right now is just looking like natural causes and old age. But Tim was one of the balls to the wall cypherpunks from the 90s. And aside from that, he was just a phenomenal engineer. One of the things that he's best known for is what's called the alpha particle problem. And when he was working at Intel, as they continued shrinking die size in integrated circuits, they ran into an issue where memory was effectively being corrupted and bits were being flipped. And Tim was the one who figured out that they had shrunk things so low that a single alpha particle was enough to modify the state of a memory chip. And the packaging, the silicon packaging that Intel was using was actually slightly radioactive and interfering with the chip's operations. And so this allowed them to figure out pretty much that just increasing the voltage a little bit and using plastic instead of silicon addressed the issue. But at the time, this was a huge kind of problem in terms of dealing with integrated circuits and continuing to try to shrink things down to smaller size. And then from that point on, he was actually one of the founders of the old cypherpunks list, and probably one of the better known ones. He's actually the author of the Cypherpunk Manifesto, and really like put himself wholly into that movement. Like so many ideas and concepts regarding to applying cryptography to maintain your right to anonymity and privacy and safety, even in the face of a nation state level actor, originated with Timothy May. And he continued to hold to that core philosophy that individuals' rights should not be counted on being safeguarded by politicians sitting in big buildings somewhere, that people should actually build tools to enforce those rights with technology. And philosophically, the entire cypherpunk movement, and especially Timothy, were the forerunners of what led to Bitcoin and the kind of stuff that we're trying to build on top of Bitcoin right now. And this is like everything we're doing right now is very much, in my mind, kind of a second wave, continuing a lot of the stuff started by these people in the 90s. And it just really sucks that Tim is not going to be with us to actually see all of this come to fruition. So just want to say, like, we're all thinking of his friends and family that are dealing with this right now. And this really is like the passing of an iconic figure in the entire movement of trying to build solutions to problems with technology instead of tinkering around with politics. And it really fucking sucks to see such a core figure in that movement leave us.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's definitely the dark turn this morning took. I mean, I saw the post too, and it was just yeah, it's just really upsetting. I mean, like, that he's not still with us anymore, because it is one of those pivotal in the background figures that kind of raised this whole fight up a long time ago, like you're saying. I mean, and I really didn't know that much about him, because this is all sort of taken place so long ago that really I gotta credit JW for pulling him up and interviewing him a while back on the channel. And, it's just a great interview and a little peek into, the way things were going back then. And it's just, it's really, yeah, it kind of hits me a little hard, just because, like, yeah, I've been wrapped up in this for a long time, like back in the mid 90s and all that sort of, like, bring AOL down and crack government encryption. It was this whole movement back then too that I didn't really catch, was like this whole cypherpunk movement. I mean, but it was just like a big, interesting, pivotal time in my life. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, it was good that people were standing up to fight for privacy and do things that Americans should stand up for in this new digital space where we were interacting in this forum, to try and bring the freedom and liberties that were afforded into this space. And it's just it's been a long fight. And yeah, it's sad to see him go. And it's going to be a yeah, definite guy just falling out that I think everybody noticed. And yeah, my thoughts are with his family and loved ones and friends that were with him all this time.
And just a quick correction. I meant to say the Crypto Anarchist Manifesto earlier, not the Cypherpunk Manifesto. That was actually Eric Hughes.
Yeah, it's a sad story, man. But yeah, did you have anything to say, Janine, before we start trying to break into what else has been going on?
Yeah, just that it was great to have him on earlier this year. I think we had him on at least once, and it was interesting to hear how, I mean, he was obviously part of the old Cypherpunk Crypto Anarchist group, but it still seems like even after all these years, they're still using, I think he mentioned that he used Coinbase, and we were trying to, like, tell him, no, don't use Coinbase. So that was kind of funny that even when you've been in this space that long, there's still some things you can learn from people who haven't been around that long.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's hard to keep up to date.
Well, I mean, I think that's really just like a stark divide, like, between that era and this one. I mean, really, back in the 90s, when a lot of those guys were talking about, like, digital cash and anonymous cash, like, they were mostly just talking about the actual mechanism for transacting. Like, none of them really were looking at something from the terms of a new currency or a new monetary policy. They were just trying to build out systems that would effectively be just another way to spend the dollar or the euro or something in a private way. And I think that the route Bitcoin took with a completely independent currency with its own valuation and monetary policy was really just kind of a huge leap forward in terms of the stuff that they were working on back in that day.
Yeah, we've come a long way since then. So yeah, again, hats off to you, Tim. I know you're out there somewhere with us still.
But yeah, it's shitty, but I guess that's life. Like, none of us are going to be here for forever.
Yeah, gotta enjoy it while we can, man.
All right, so I guess moving past that kind of depressing start, let's get into the news.
All right, man.
So, for people who've been paying attention to the drama on Twitter over the last few months out of sheer boredom, given the bear market, everybody has been shitting all over Samourai wallet for the most inane, stupid, semantic twisting reasons. And they've recently revamped their website and added a new section. So they've been talking for a while now about actually open sourcing their backend dojo so that users can connect to their own node and no longer have to deal with Samourai's server being aware of all of their outputs and addresses. And they're taking a little bit of a further step with that and have actually partnered with Bitseed to launch a pre-configured node product sometime early next year, is what they've been saying, running the dojo software as the interface. And this, it's nice solid hardware. Like the latest version of a Bitseed isn't just a Raspberry Pi that's going to struggle to keep up with things. And from what they have on the website, it looks like the pairing operation has really been simplified to the point where one of the screenshots on the interface literally just has a button for showing a pairing code, which I'm assuming is going to be a QR code to scan and just automate the entire pairing process so that it's not something that people are going to have to really tinker with or be tech savvy to be able to handle, which is a really nice thing. And while they are going to be open sourcing the software itself so that you can effectively run it on anything you want, I think, me personally at least, I'm probably going to wind up buying one of these pre-configured nodes just because like they really do a lot of work in this space, and something like this as an actual product is going to give them revenue to keep paying developers and keep compensating themselves so that they can continue doing work like this. And so while, obviously it's not being a Raspberry Pi, like the vanilla Bitseed version is around $300 something right now. But if you've got the money lying around and want to actually give these guys some support, I at least would recommend buying this because the more money they can get under their belt, the more resources they can actually put towards developing more privacy features and building out infrastructure for people. And that's sadly something that not a lot of is being done in this space. I mean, I really struggle to think outside of the Lightning community of anybody really developing good software for users outside of Samourai and Wasabi. Like, it's Mycelium just recently, like more than a year late. We've got SegWit. Like, wallets like Bread Wallet aren't building anything solid. Like, there's not really anything out there that has a fully fleshed out feature set for users to just be able to use on something like a phone mobily. Like, everything out there with that kind of feature set is all like tied to hardware or something that you have to run on a desktop. And I think it's really important to continue supporting people who are developing the way to actually use Bitcoin on the go. Like, without that, like, we're limiting ourselves to pretty much just use on the internet. And while that is important and while that is a huge niche in and of itself, like, there's absolutely no reason to just concede and confine ourselves to one niche or another when Bitcoin can grow to fill all kinds of niches in the entire world.
Yeah, man, I think I'm with you on picking up one of these pre-configured nodes. Like, if there's one thing that, well, you know, first off, just like you're saying, I mean, to, you know, support guys that are actually working, you know, continuously to help develop privacy for Bitcoin. That's a really important, you know, group of guys. It's not many. So, you know, I understand there's like, you know, this back and forth about details and verbiage and everything. But, you know, the point is when it comes to people spending their time and effort working on trying to improve the system with what they have, I think these guys are, you know, on the top of the league with this privacy movement moving forward, you know, like them and Nopara, like you're saying. I mean, you know, that's kind of the front lines of all this. And so, you know, not just in, you know, like, oh, you know, I want to, but honestly, these pre-configured nodes have kind of become a hot seller. If you look at the Casa Hodl nodes, those things are really taking off in the sense that, like, I mean, everybody that's getting them, I don't know if it's just like every single person that gets them, I see it on Twitter, but it seems like everybody's jazzed about these pre-configured nodes that they can operate with. And if there's one that I could purchase that will improve my privacy with my, you know, mobile wallet, then, you know, yeah, that sounds like an interesting thing to tinker around with, not just, you know, some, you know, Raspberry Pi node with some sleek software on the front. I mean, you know, something that's actually working to help try and improve the privacy and everything. I think that's great. And yeah, I'm like, I mean, you know, I've got all this stuff for nodes, but I mean, like a pre-configured node sounds like it would be fun. So yeah, I'm going to do that too.
Well, I think it should be pointed out the Casa node is actually just a Raspberry Pi with a box around it in that case. But yeah, I'm also really disappointed with some of the comments that I've seen, especially from certain, shall we call them, wallet developers and CEOs who have their own major issues. And instead of acknowledging those and fixing those and maybe paying some security researchers to, you know, fix those things, and they're not little things, they're like high level things. Instead of paying to get those fixed, they would rather spend their time on Twitter, you know. I mean, but you know what? I'm not gonna pretend to, you know, not say the person's name. It was Jonas Schnelly. And he really disappointed me because he made a bunch of comments on Twitter about the Casa node. I mean, yes, there's things you can laugh about with the Casa node, but he was basically making comments about Samourai. He was making comments about Casa, and it's like, dude, you have your own problems. How about you address those first? And I got like comments about, oh, I predicted, you know, the fact that they got called out for those security issues by Salim. But let's just say it wasn't a prediction. It happened. So yeah, I'm really disappointed in these people who, you know, like, yes, we all realize that there are still some privacy issues with Samourai, but the software itself, once it can be used with, once you use it with a different node, it's far superior to any other wallet that's out there right now, besides obviously Wasabi, but they kind of do different things. In terms of, you know, managing your Bitcoin in a way that tries to preserve your privacy as much as possible in the current environment where we don't have a lot of the advanced scripting that we're trying to add, but will still take a lot of time. So yeah, I don't appreciate other wallets giving them hate for that when they're trying to do it and they're better than everyone else so far.
And, you know, I can't believe like we actually didn't cover the Salim Bitbox thing because in my drunken stupor in Asia, I spent so much time shitting on it on Twitter that it just escaped my mind that I didn't put it on the news desk. But let's just say that a wallet that has a secure element with protection for its flash memory that contains your keys that disables the memory protection. I just have no words other than what the fuck were you thinking?
Not that much.
So yeah, you know, this is something from Samourai I'm really looking forward to. And as much as a lot of people in this space like to stick their nose up at things like this, and admittedly, I am one of those people. I mostly am going to be purchasing this just to give Samourai some support. But like at the end of the day, the bigger we get, things like this are going to be necessary for your average non-technical person to actually be able to use their own node. I mean, it's just a sad fact of life. Even the basic configuration and setup necessary to run it, eventually, as we keep growing, is going to be beyond more and more people to actually handle. And something that you can just plug in, hit a button, and it handles setting itself up, that's going to be something that's necessary if you want to see the percentage of people using Bitcoin validating with their own node go up, and not eventually just hit a plateau where people throw their hands up and give up because the barrier to entry to actually do it is just too high for a normal person.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be great for adoption. And, like, I mean, I've been tinkering around with this, Raspblitz, and also just looking at my node that I need to reconfigure a little bit. And, you go Google searching on any of these topics, you're going to be thrown, here's how to set up a Bitcoin Cash node. There's this Bitcoin Gold node. Like, I mean, and then you really got to go to, okay, I remember this guy's got a good, breakdown of what's going on in the setup process, and then finding those people. And, it's just like a maze, a myriad right now to try and find all that. So, yeah, it'll be essential to have these sort of, just one click and you're validating. So it's a great thing, yeah, I plan on picking one up just because, yeah, the easy use sounds good. And I like sleek software.
Mm-hmm. All right. And so next up, is a company called Nym Technologies that's actually getting some investment support from Binance that is kind of going back in time a little bit and trying to revitalize an old cypherpunk concept from the 90s called a mixnet, to create an alternative to things like Tor and I2P to communicate or move data around anonymously on the internet. And I actually had the chance to talk to one of the people involved in this project in person earlier this year about this. And I just have to say that he is somebody who definitely knows his shit and has been giving this concept a really long time of in-depth analysis, specifically thinking of things like nation states or the NSA in terms of the threat model that he is trying to build something to withstand. And kind of just a quick summary of mixnets, at least how they were implemented way back in the day. It's literally just kind of similar to Tor, an onion routed message passing service that was mostly used to kind of shuffle around emails or other communications. And what it would do in old implementations is introduce random latency. So like you would encrypt your message, you would encrypt all of the onion layers so that each successive peer along the route would only have access to pass on to the next person and not the actual message itself. And it would wait. Like you would get to the first hop and it would say wait like 5 minutes, pass it on to the next one, wait some random time, pass it on to the next one. And it would do this so that you can kind of counter timing analysis, which is pretty much somebody looking at networks or services like this on the fringe. And based on when information is entering them and information is going out of them, it would be able to, with a high degree of certainty, figure out who's communicating with who, just based on the fact that without this delay, if I send a message and something pops out the other end immediately afterwards, without a high amount of traffic, like you can be reasonably certain that I'm the one who sent the message that just popped out the other end, because there's really nothing that entered in that interim that could have traveled there fast enough except my message. And this really kind of damaged the user experience. It made it something that your average person is not going to be comfortable using. It's kind of unpredictable when you put a message in there, how long it's going to take to actually reach its destination. And then any kind of reply is the exact same thing. It's totally uncertain how long it's going to take for that reply to get back to the other side. And this kind of made it not very viable for any kind of time-sensitive communication or use. And so what Nym Technologies is trying to do, given how rapidly internet infrastructure has improved since the 90s, is building out a mixnet with a very low latency. And in order to deal with the potential of timing attacks, what they're doing is going to be effectively flooding the network with nonsense traffic, so that at all times, even if nobody is actually using it to communicate or send a message, or one of the things that was specifically thought of in designing this is relaying cryptocurrency transactions, all of the peers in the network are just constantly sending junk packets at each other, so that you don't really have any kind of basis to know what's an actual message or what's just gibberish to throw off timing analysis. And another thing, when I was talking to the person involved in this project that he's specifically taking into account with this, is network partition attacks, which is another thing you can do to deal with these kind of mixed nets or anonymity networks, is effectively cut off one part of the network from another, and then see if a communication that you're trying to identify goes through or not while that network is partitioned. And if it does, then you can pretty much say that that's the half of the network that whoever you're trying to identify is in. And if it doesn't, then it's in the other half. And you can kind of progressively go through as a nation state level actor and just keep partitioning sections of the network until you narrow down who you're actually trying to identify. And so one of the things that this network is going to be doing is kind of taking the junk traffic that they're using to throw off timing analysis, and also use that as a way to continue the same volume of traffic in the event of any kind of partition, so that given everything that is actually moving through this mixed net is encrypted, if you were to partition something, you are still going to see the same amount of traffic flowing through partitions. And they're kind of trying to structure this in a way so that even if somebody like the NSA tries fragmenting the network to identify somebody, they're not going to be able to look at changes in the packet volume flowing through the network to figure out where somebody is and continue like downsizing that partition until they can actually identify the person. And I really think that this is a very promising thing going forward. And this is definitely something that Tim May would have had a lot of interest in if he was still with us. But the one thing that really kind of irritates me a little bit is Amir Taki is getting involved with this company. And despite this mixnet and this architecture trying to build a project like this being hugely important to offer alternatives to things like Tor, which is ran by people I absolutely do not trust, Amir is kind of sliding in with his let's just say petulant schoolboy attitude and his recent penchant for shitcoinery. And he is supposedly now going to be working on Dark Wallet 2, despite never having actually finished the first Dark Wallet implementation, to use this mixnet as a way to relay things privately on the network level. And is also supposedly coded up his own implementation of Mimblewimble, because apparently 2 implementations is not enough. We need 3 new shit coins. Instead of, concentrating on the technology, we need a new coin, guys. And so, as excited as I am to really follow the development of Nym Technologies and how this Mixnet actually plays out during deployment and as use picks up, I really am kind of disappointed to see more shitcoin nonsense kind of tack onto this and try to use this as a way to get visibility and attention. And honestly, if history is any indication, I fully expect Amir to just end up dropping half of this unfinished and walking away and finding some reason to complain about shit. Because really, like, everything he's done since he started becoming active in the space again over the last couple of years is just pretty much whine that people don't share his anarcho-commie philosophy of things and isn't doing what he wants done. And it's really just kind of sad to see somebody who is so influential in the space early on just kind of start acting like a whiny child because everybody isn't letting him play dictator or doing what he wants. But, overall, I'm really kind of excited to see this Mixnet get built out and deployed. And this is really, really important in the long term because there are still some issues with things like Tor. And, like I said, I absolutely do not trust any of the people involved in that project at this point, where their funding comes from, a lot of indirect connections to government contractors and intelligence agencies. And that's like, we need an alternative to something, or we need an alternative something to Tor that is not riddled with all kinds of suspicious and questionable people involved in its development and effectively getting its funding from the US government. Because it's really just a question of what can be exploited right now and what will be exploitable in the future, given all of these shady ties and connections and how that can influence the project overall going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I was digging through this last night, looking at it, going, man, this could be really interesting and effective at helping anonymize traffic. I mean, it's one of those things, like you're saying, with Tor over the years, like their whole reputation has kind of been degraded over time, and anything we can throw in, with the whole stack of trying to keep your traffic anonymous. I mean, like, do you think like it would fit in? Like, just curious question. Like, do you think somebody would do like a VPN Nym Tor, like kind of just like set it up like that, or do you think they would just? I mean, it's just another layer, right? They would throw in there, or is this something specific?
No,
just that.
This, I mean, you could connect to something like this through a VPN, but like ultimately, this is kind of an alternative to Tor. Like, it's not something you would use in tandem with Tor. Like, this is its own anonymity network. Like, passing messages through this would anonymize the source in the same kind of way that Tor does, except the architecture is a little different, and some of the ways that timing attacks are dealt with is a lot of like what is unique about this, and actually kind of setting up defenses against high level attacks that something like Tor really isn't architected to deal with. Like, Tor is still heavily vulnerable to things like timing attacks and things like network partition attacks, where you can still try to identify who is using Tor if somebody's up to something that you want to identify them for.
Yeah, that keeping the random traffic moving even when you partition the network sounds like that would be pretty effective at mitigating that. And yeah, I mean, just an interesting thing to sort of pop back out of the depths of those earlier days. And I imagine like I mean, wasabi and nopara and mixing is kind of like a thing now that people are thinking about, and so I mean, it makes sense to kind of try and, I guess, jump on top of that wave of excitement. And, you know, I think Amir, like, he's got, ever since he came back from, you know, Syria, I think it was, like, he's got that, you know, he's thinking about what's going on here and now. And, like, I think he's just trying to, like, oh, we need answers now. And, you know, damn the, you know, the roadmap or anything. So it's, yeah, it's upsetting to see a guy like that kind of change, but I can imagine it's got a lot to do with what he's been through. But yeah, I mean, interesting to see this stuff come back up and possibly be used.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Nopara is going to be like, Shinobi, fuck you, work. But there's really no reason in principle why Wasabi couldn't be retooled to work with something like this Mixnet instead of Tor. But I'm sure he's just screaming right now at me, thinking about the insane workload that would entail for him and the guys.
Got you guys hard at work, man. That whole privacy side of things, but it's good work.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, Janine, you got any input on this, or should we slide along?
All good.
All right. So yeah, let's continue on and what's new in these new tech topics. So yeah, like Samsung made an announcement, and I've never owned a Samsung Series phone. I've been lagging behind keeping up with the Joneses of cell phones for a long time. Stuck with the old J series, but I might make a swap if this announcement comes to fruition. So yeah, Samsung is trying to offer a new wallet with their new S10 about to come out. This news comes on the heels of Samsung filing trademarks with the European Union Intellectual Property Office on Tuesday of this past week. Those trademarks were Blockchain Key Store, Blockchain Key Box, and Blockchain Core was the title of those trademarks, and the applications do not reveal any details other than the fact that trademarks belong to phone-related software or services, stating, quote, smartphones, software applications for use with mobile devices, computer software platforms, application software. So still very broad, like it's nothing really detailed out. But it said that Samsung's wallet will operate in two parts. One wallet will be for transfers, viewing account info, and transaction history. And the other will be more of a cold storage for storing private keys and signing keys for transactions. I'm interested to see these wallets get pushed out by Samsung. It looks like they are seriously about to put a firm footprint in the space. I mean, we know back in late September, it was announced that Samsung would be the foundry partner for the Canadian-based mining company Squire. Their role in that product line would be for production and preliminary testing. And Squire estimates that by the end of fourth quarter of this year, it will complete manufacture and assembly of its pilot production test of that first ASIC chip and rig for Bitcoin mining. So it looks like right now there are a few details trickling out about the possibilities with Samsung's new wallet. Users could import existing wallets from third-party services while also being able to generate new ones. And it looks like the initial support may include Bitcoin, Ethereum, ETH ERC20 tokens, and Bcash. This is all just rumor, but they're saying accounts created using the app are stored on the blockchain network with complete anonymity. Samsung wouldn't have the data, and the only way users can access it would be through their recovery seed. Also, the app will offer an additional layer of security by requiring a PIN and a fingerprint. So that tidbit has phone enthusiasts presuming there won't be an iris scanner on this new S-series phone, which that sounds good to me. All these biometrics are creeping me out. But anyway, all this all sounds good, like pretty good news to me that shows the fundamentals of the system is not only working but thriving. Everyone might be upset about the price and, but these stories suggest in the background there's a lot of big players building out infrastructure from their belief in the ecosystem success. So yeah, just a little basic rumors coming out about Samsung and wallet development. Did you guys think anything about this news? I mean, are they just trying to be competitive to that HTC Exodus box, or are they really trying to develop wallets and put their footprint in the space, so to speak?
I think a little bit of both. And like, honestly, I really do not like the way that they're advertising this. Like, you know, a lot of smartphones nowadays have like a trusted executable environment to the section of memory that's a little more hardened where you can run programs or do things like manage private keys. But I would absolutely not call that cold storage. And I would not tell anybody to treat a wallet like that as cold storage and a place to save all of their crypto savings. Like, that, in my mind, is absolutely nothing but a security improvement for a hot wallet. And to be advising, to be marketing a product like this as if it is a secure cold storage solution, as if it is anywhere on par with a purpose-specific hardware wallet or an air-gapped protocol like the Glacier protocol, is reckless, irresponsible. And if they actually start putting out marketing material like this, I'm going to chew them a new asshole and recommend that everybody in this ecosystem do so, because that is highly irresponsible. Like, we've already seen with the whole issue with Intel that environments like that can be compromised. And to act like something that is literally hardwired to a wireless modem on a cellular network is anything like a truly air-gapped cold storage method is just fuck you. Like, you are being completely irresponsible. You are putting any user who takes that at face value at risk to having their entire savings in cryptocurrency stolen. And like, just no, that is absolutely not acceptable. Now, as far as being a more secure way to manage your spending money, like, yeah, I think that is a net improvement to your keys just being in normal memory on a smartphone. But advertising it as anything more than that is a complete misrepresentation of reality to the detriment of whoever takes that advertisement at face value.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like I was reading through it going, I don't know exactly how this is going to, really lock down your keys, but I mean, it's still real early on. Like, these are just details leaking out about it. I was starting to, wonder if maybe they are going to develop some special purpose hardware or something. But, I mean, if it's just coming out with the S10, then, that's not exactly safe. So, I mean, what do you think, Janine? Samsung going to convince you to switch to a smartphone with this, or yeah?
No, nothing would.
All right.
The only thing that could convince me to use a smartphone is if you took out all of the features that people actually use smartphones for, which is like microphone, camera, speakers, blah, blah, blah. And at that point, it's like, what am I doing? This is a tiny computer. Why don't I just get a real computer? And then you're done.
It's true. I was always kind of anticipating those modular smartphones. Those would be pretty fun. But let's continue on in what's been going on and updates. So Robinhood has been moving quick, fast, in a hurry this year to allow access in all 50 states to their trading platform. And its neon interface and troll boxes keep the crowd engaged. So now they're trying to get people to trust their system and deposit some savings with the app. Just a couple of days ago on Thursday, Robinhood announced they are launching checking and savings accounts. Not just that, but they planned on bringing brick and mortar branches with zero fees, access to tons of ATMs, credit, debit cards, and 3% interest. This program is set to launch in January of 2019. Co-CEO, gonna kill this, I'm sorry, Bajubat, maybe, told TechCrunch, quote, "Our goal with this product was to build a completely digital experience so we can reduce our overhead so we can pass more of that value back to our customers." And end quote. So now this announcement is raising red flags since they also stated all All investor funds would be insured by the SIPC, which is the Security Investor Protection Corporation. And the SIPC is a SRO, a self-regulatory organization created under the Security Investor Protection Act of 1970. They are a nonprofit, member-funded U.S. corporation that mandates membership to most U.S. registered broker-dealers. They are required to report to the SEC, who oversees the organization. Now, Stephen Harbeck, the president and chief executive officer of SIPC, said after this announcement, quote, "I disagree with the statement that these funds are protected by SIPC. Had they called us, I would have told them what I just told you, in that I have serious concerns about this. This has gigantic ramifications for the banking industry." And Tyler Galosh, executive director of Healthy Markets, said, quote, "The first thing companies usually do is check with their regulators to make sure they are on solid footing. It doesn't look like they did this. It raises questions about how the whole damn business operates. They don't use prudent judgment or caution." So with that pushback, Robinhood put out a blog post yesterday saying, quote, "As a licensed broker-dealer, we are highly regulated and take clear communication very seriously. We plan to work closely with regulators as we prepare to launch our cash management program, and we are revamping our marketing materials, including the name. Our promise is unwavering. We always put our customers first, whether it's deciding which features to build, keeping your cash and securities protected, or offering products that allow everyone to participate in and benefit from the financial system." And with that, they just said, stay tuned at the bottom of the post. And it looks like they're just going to try and get in contact to still launch this program in 2019, but we'll see. This kind of reminds me a little of late 2017 when you saw companies just sort of moving past regulatory barriers to see how far they could go before, the SEC or the CFTC or whatever organization is overseeing what would react. And the SIPC was very quick to react to this news. And I'm curious if this is putting the whole project on hold or if this plans will just be altered. Either way, it has regulators asking more questions about Robinhood. Right now, it's not clear whether they route crypto order flow correctly, and if they have they also have significant fine print when it comes to crypto. Users also are kind of upset that their platform is marketed as free, even though the exchange fees are included in the price of a trade. All right, so Robinhood's been moving fast, and now they're being pretty heavily scrutinized. What did you guys think about this announcement and the pushback? And kind of just got me thinking, these guys, they really just talk through press releases. What do you think?
Well, honestly, I mean, it's not really that shocking to see that they didn't even try to get any kind of regulatory approval. But when I first heard this, I thought it was really weird because one of their huge selling points is that they don't charge fees. And so, looking at a checking and saving account with 3% interest, the first thing that popped into my mind is where the hell are you getting that money? Because that's crazy. That's literally more interest than some government bonds out there. And to be pulling in that kind of interest on a savings account with no clear revenue stream, I mean, it was just kind of strange. And I mean, I could see a business like them still really concentrating on growth, potentially just burning runway money for that or something, but it was still just weird. That's something like that is just you can't get around the question of where is that money coming from? How are you getting it? And how sustainable is that in the long term? Because really trying to attract users to a product like that with a promise of interest rates like that, how long can you really sustain that? And if you can't, that's really kind of a deceptive way in my mind to bring in customers. Although if there is like a sensible, logical explanation for it, then I think like this would be kind of something interesting to see, like more different kinds of businesses and companies branching out into offering like consumer banking products to people. And again, if there's nothing really sketchy with like where that money for interest is coming from, then I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be allowed to do something like this. Like, I mean, this is just simply competition coming and giving banks a run for their money. And I think it's really like like nothing demonstrates like how protected like major banks are as a monopoly, like the '08 bailouts. And I mean, that's not how you should be running an economy. Like the government should not be in the business of picking and choosing winners and losers. It should be left to the market. And if companies like Robinhood can come in and legitimately offer more competitive, like, you know, banking services to the average consumer in a way that's not doing something shady, then they should be allowed to, like, point blank.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, man. Like, you know, Robinhood is the only other app I've got on my phone right now other than the Cash App when it comes to all this, because, you know, they are kind of like moving to build this competition within, you know, just like the way that exchanges operates and everything. I mean, they were like one of the first, you know, start moving to specific states because they were offering the best legislation for them to set up. But then they quickly sprouted out everywhere. But you know, I mean, like when I saw the thing yesterday, I was getting psyched because the idea of like, yeah, a checking and a savings and a debit card. I mean, like, you know, goodbye Coinbase. I mean, Coinbase is pretty much gone out the door, but like the idea of like, you know, just something other option for me other than the Cash Card and the Cash App, as far as some way to use my Bitcoin to make purchases. I like that. And I'm just check the app. I mean, it's still on there. I mean, like, it's funny. Yesterday it had a debit card and it showed the debit cards and everything, but it still says right here, you know, you can get early access to this this cash management system coming in 2019. So, I mean, like, I'm curious too as to like how exactly they're getting the revenue for it. But I imagine, you know, there's a lot of people. I mean, I was on the bus not too long ago and I saw somebody making trades on like, I think a traditional stock or something. And I think those traditional stocks, they still have fees and everything involved. But, you know, I mean, certainly, I guess the SIPC and, you know, all these regulators want to break into those books and make sure everything's in place before they start offering something like this. And I'm sure they probably will negotiate the interest rate, because I think the nationwide average is 0.06%. So 3% compared to 0.06% is huge. And we'll see how it goes. But, you know, I mean, it would be interesting if they're allowed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Janine, come on. You gotta talk now.
Yeah, I'm here. So I was actually surprised that Shinobi didn't take this one, but it's about Coinbase, and I think we should include it because there's also another Coinbase story. If you watched the last show, you probably heard that we had a long discussion about possible issues that centralized exchanges might experience or be causing with regards to the proof of keys initiative. And one of them actually came to light within hours of our live stream. A guy on Twitter by the name of Justin Jindra tweeted that in the process of withdrawing about $2,400 worth of Litecoin from Coinbase, he sent it to a Bitcoin address by accident. Now, of course, Coinbase did, I mean, I don't know if this is what he saw before or after he did this, but he had a warning sent to him that that when you're withdrawing large amounts of any cryptocurrency from Coinbase, you should always send a smaller amount to an external address to test it first to make sure that's the right one, in case you make a mistake or maybe you find out you actually can't access the address or whatever. But whenever he received that notice, I think it was probably after he contacted support. So he basically notified CoinDesk support of his mistake, and they told him that, quote, if you have accidentally transferred LTC to a BTC address, it cannot be recovered. We apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. Which means that not only did Coinbase's system fail to recognize that the address Dustin accidentally provided was for the wrong cryptocurrency, but whoever the support person was that answered his message was actually not telling the truth when they claimed that his Litecoin was not recoverable, because Shinobi actually stepped up instead and walked him through the process of recovering it, which is possible because Litecoin and Bitcoin are still similar enough in the way that they generate private keys that it's possible to access a matching private key for Litecoin, even if you send it to a Bitcoin address. And as you may have seen, Shinobi had a lot more to say about this incident on Twitter. So after I'm done with this part, he can rant about that. But I think it would be good also if he could describe, since this situation may come up again, it's possible that most people don't even know how they would go about rectifying this kind of situation, especially when, as I mentioned in the last show, the support staff at these centralized exchanges and wallets are usually completely unwilling or not knowledgeable enough to help you. So this kind of thing happens a lot, not only at Coinbase, but also at blockchain.info. And usually if you come across bugs like this in their system, like very small things where people can make mistakes like this, you might be lucky enough to get paid off by them to stay quiet, but the chances of them helping you in any substantial way are slim to none.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this really just takes the cake, though, because pretty much the issue is for pay to script hash addresses. Litecoin used to use the same address serialization as Bitcoin, starting with a 3. And a while back, they actually created a new serialization that started with an M to deal with this issue. And although they haven't really started deprecating things across the whole ecosystem, like, this is something Coinbase should have done themselves. Like, it has been quite a while now that Litecoin had a different serialization available, and they should have updated their system to either refuse to process withdrawals to old format addresses, or at least put a warning screen for a user to double check to see whether that was in fact a Litecoin address. But the issue here that really like pisses me the fuck off is claiming that these coins are completely unrecoverable. And this just shows to me that the people running support at Coinbase have absolutely no business being support staff for a cryptocurrency company. They don't even understand the most basic fucking thing about products that are listed by their company. Like, Bitcoin and Litecoin are almost identical. The only real significant changes have been the proof of work, address serialization, and the removal of RBF. And in pretty much every other way, they are an almost identical code base. They use the exact same curve to generate private and public key pairs. And there is absolutely nothing that stops you in the instance of something like this happening from recovering the private key in raw serialization, converting it from Bitcoin format to the Litecoin serialization, and importing it into a Litecoin wallet, which is what I walked him through doing. And it's pretty much, if you understand how to copy and paste things and pull a key out of a wallet, this is almost trivial to recover money from. It's just, it takes time and it's a bit of a pain in the ass. But the fact that their support staff is literally just, nope, this is impossible to recover, is beyond fucking belief. Like, this should point blank be something in their internal support wiki where they do a search, they pull up a link to materials and hand to the user and go, that's how you fix that. Sorry, we can't do anything but point you to that because that would require us dealing with your private keys, and that's unacceptable. End of story. This should be just another thing that they have documentation to give to people on how to fix, But instead, they are so fucking incompetent and so lazy that they're just spewing out a form letter going, your money is forever lost. And to think that a support staff at a company specifically set up to deal with cryptocurrencies does not have that kind of infrastructure and material internally in the company is insane. Like, it is absolutely fucking insane. They're not doing support. They are pretty much just going, nope, we're not going to assist with anything. Here is a form letter. I'm being paid to just copy and paste this and do nothing to actually help our customers. And that is fucking absurd, given the size of Coinbase, how much capital they have. Like, it is completely fucking inexcusable that their support staff is not trained to deal with this, is unaware of the nature of this problem and how simple it is to fix. And frankly, this is exactly the kind of shit that I was fucking worried about when proof of keys was put out and started being memed around all over the place. And to really put the cherry on top, after I'd reached out to him to help him through this problem, he had a scammer DM him on Twitter and try to pretend to be a Coinbase employee. So not only did something get fucked up in the withdrawal process, like I predicted, not only did Coinbase wash their hands of it and not do shit to help him, but there was immediately somebody flocking to the fucking incident to try to scam him out of money. And this is exactly the kind of shit that we're going to see more of as more and more people decide to partake in proof of keys. Like, if this event is going to go forward, which it is going to, there actually needs to be educational material put out there so that people don't have fuck ups like this, so that there are not opportunities created for scammers to try to swoop in and swindle people of their money, because it's going to happen.
Yeah, this was like one of those where I saw it, I was upset about it, see these guys lose money, but right on for helping this guy out and figure out a way to do this because, I mean, like who's this in the chat? Kevin was saying, there's not really these companies like Coinbase, they're not really investing that much in tech support. And, that seems like where they should, if you're like, I mean, just like whenever we did that story a minute ago about Samsung, we've done a bunch of stories where you could see like the facade of something. And I mean, like if they're not spending the money they need for tech support, then I mean, it just shows like another example of like the way that they see the space and the way that they see they're going forward in their value proposition and how they're going to profit. Because I mean, if you're a crypto company right now and you're handling people's keys and they're just newbies coming into the space, you're the main on-ramp for all these people for a couple of years now, like you think that you would understand, like you should probably have at least like one tech support person that understands crypto really well with some of these people that are just copying and pasting information. Or I mean, it just shows that they're just really a dumpster fire, man. They're in trouble. I mean, they definitely don't have the same address. You think they would be able to program that in to where, people can't send Litecoin to Bitcoin addresses, or at least they would be prompted to know, like, look, you're sending this to a wrong address, but they don't really care about that. And I mean, I'm kind of curious as to how many customers this happened to, and if they really don't know that they can recover those funds, or if they just like have a policy of telling customers like they can't recover it and really they try and recover it later, or if they really are just that ignorant. I don't know. But good job on helping that guy out.
Yeah, I mean, this is like any support staff in this ecosystem should have a core team that is not just filling out form letters, but actually investigating issues and ensuring that they are compiling thorough material for either the other support staff or the customers to be able to address issues. Like, customer support should not just be, I'm sorry, you have a problem. What is it? I'm sorry, we can't do shit about it. there should be people actually investigating new issues, looking at the underlying issues, and ensuring that the material to actually solve the fucking problem is available to the staff internally and available to give to customers when the need arises.
So what else is Coinbase doing, Janine?
Well, as we saw in the beginning of December, they decided to list Zcash as a new cryptocurrency on their platform. Unfortunately, I mean, not really unfortunately, because most people using Zcash don't use the shielded addresses. But if you want to use Zcash with Coinbase, I think Shinobi, you said the last time I asked that they are not accepting Zcash from shielded addresses, right?
Yeah, from my understanding, yeah.
Yeah, so they listed Zcash, but they don't let you use any of the actual useful features that Zcash might allow you to use. So basically, it's no better than Bitcoin. Oops. Instead, they decided to, instead of training their support people or, I don't know, maybe letting people use the useful features of Zcash, they decided to announce on December 11th that they would be donating $10,000 worth of Zcash at the current price, I suppose, who knows, to a project of givecrypto.org in a Venezuelan border town. And they wrote, with our gift, the organization will pay $1 USD or $1 worth of crypto directly into the crypto wallets of more than 100 families in Santa Elena every day for 3 months. Recipients can purchase food and basic supplies at a local store that accepts payments in crypto, subsidizing everyday expenses. This $1 equivalent per day can help buy 1 to 2 kilos of protein or 2 kilos of starches and vegetables. And it's kind of hard to estimate how much, because I was trying to figure out how much $1 is worth in Venezuelan bolivar, which there's apparently 3 different versions of the Venezuelan bolivar. The newest one, I think, was just started being issued in August. The Bolivar Soberano. And especially if you're looking between white versus black market rates, I was seeing like 300 up to 250,000. I have no idea if that might be a prior version of the Bolivar that I was looking at, but if anyone has a more reliable estimate, either way, let us know. But anyway, people were not happy about this Coinbase announcement for a few reasons. I would say that Dash users and or promoters were probably the most upset of all, as you can see from the litany of comments that they left below Coinbase's announcement on Medium, because according to them, Dash has broader use in Venezuela already than Zcash, even though neither actually provide the privacy or anonymity that they claim to. You can see articles about that specifically from Aaron Verdum. And Coinbase doesn't let you use those privacy features, so kind of waste of time. Others like Udi were upset, as is mentioned, and I think an article from Bitcoinist, which I only partially read because it's, again, one of those media outlets that doesn't they don't provide disclosures when they get paid. I believe they were on that list.
They were.
Yeah. Oops. Oh well. So they were pulling stuff from Twitter, people's reactions, so I think that's pretty safe to cite from. And Udi was upset and others were upset because even though it looks like Coinbase is being charitable, in practice, if you are sending money to families who are in a desperate situation that they can't even afford a few kilos of food per day, it's not exactly helpful to give money that they will need for immediate spending in a form that is not usable to them. Obviously, though, Coinbase does note in 2 places that givecrypto.org has a network of vendors to provide a direct, stable line of support. And apparently they also said there's a store where they can buy food with it. So I don't know. It is the case where at least they made sure that there were stores and vendors in place that could accept it, because a lot of these projects sometimes they'll just say, we're just going to donate Bitcoin and see what happens. But then there's no, assurance that there's actually places for them to spend that cryptocurrency, and then they have to find a place to sell it, which can be hard in and of itself to deal with all of that. So I don't know. As long as at this point, I feel kind of ambivalent about it, because I mean, first of all, it's such a small amount of money. It's like $10,000. Like, really, Coinbase, you couldn't do more than 10,000. But if they just want to, I don't know, test the waters with being charitable or something, I mean, at least they did the due diligence, or at least they say that they did the due diligence to make sure that there is support for people and that they can actually spend it and not just, be forced to sell it while they're desperately trying to get food for their family. Yeah, kind of a mixed bag here.
Yeah, I think that this is just more virtue signaling horseshit. And even a large amount of people in Venezuela, where we're pretty much going like, what the fuck do you think this does? Oh, like you pick 100 people and give them $1 a day. That's making a huge dent in the problems there. There are fucking nonprofits trying to deal with this issue. Like Udi said, give them the dollar, something that's actually stable, that is actually widely demanded and accepted in that fucking country. Like there are like actually try to work to make services integrating with crypto widely available in the country. But no, instead we just pick 100 people and give them a tiny pigling of money from our pockets and go, look at the good we're doing for the underserved. It's fucking horseshit. This is just them yet again trying to go look at what we're doing when in the grand scheme of things, they're not doing a goddamn thing. And they're actively staying away from places like this where there's actually a shit ton of people in need of things like cryptocurrencies. It's the exact same kind of shit with Dash. They're just virtue signaling, trying to show their shit coins, taking advantage of people in a horrible situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it would make more sense to give them, I mean, stability. I mean, well, I have no idea how volatile the Zcash price is, but in terms of like, if they're going to be giving it to, it depends on how they space it out. But yeah, it either way, it doesn't really do a lot of good in the end. It doesn't do a lot of good considering how much good they could do with the resources they have. Like we've talked about before, there are a bunch of countries where Coinbase has kind of done similar virtue signaling, like, oh look, we're interested in the issues of the unbanked, but it's like, oh, you don't even service like more than a country in the entire region that we're talking about. Like they did a prior article about Afghanistan. They don't serve Afghanistan. They don't even serve, I don't think they serve any countries in the region that Afghanistan is in. But they still write an article about interviewing someone who is there and, could be helped with those resources about, empowering women. But it's like, what are you actually doing? You're not doing anything. And part of it is, because they've now put themselves in a situation where if they want to keep their, if they want to stay on their regulatory high horse, they really can't actually do much to help people, because that's what the banking system is built for. It's to keep people like that out. It's not to help them. So, even if Coinbase did have an interest in doing more, they might not even be able to, because they've decided to corner themselves into this niche where they have a bunch of former regulators working for them. Probably a bunch of people at Coinbase will become regulators at some point in the future, and they want to keep that sweet spot where they're not, they're not looked at too closely.
Yeah, I think I'm with Shinobi on this one. There's like some virtue signaling to try and pump their bags, or try and just because I don't know, it seems like ever since that Zcash announcement, they've just been like peddling something to do with Zcash to try and get the price up. And I mean, it just seems like, yeah, this is a good way to try and put out the bare minimal effort to try and just get a storyline out there with something with Zcash in it. And it's something that's not really helpful. I mean, like you're just saying, I mean, the article about Afghanistan, and I just checked, I mean, like all their supported countries have banking already. And like, it's just ridiculous. Like it would, in North America, they got Canada and United States, but not Mexico. And it's just like, that's like, seems like something that would be helpful and an easy thing to do, but they don't want to do that. And I mean, like, maybe this is actually just another sign that they are really hurting, that $10,000 was all they could afford. I mean, but I mean, I doubt it. I mean, like what, it cost $250,000 to be one of their institutional investors. I mean, they regularly have, a large amount of people transacting on Coinbase. So I mean, it seems like they would be able to afford more than this. And then it's just an easy way to get a headline out about Zcash. And yeah, it just really shows that these guys really don't care about changing things. They're just trying to line their pockets.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty. And I guess speaking of shitbags trying to line their pockets, so latest development coming out of Venezuela regarding the Petro is the government has started forcibly converting elderly people's pension payments into the Petro. So for elderly people in Venezuela, they have a pension system that wires them bolivars every month, I believe. And this month, people got the announcement through their phones that their pension had arrived, and then immediately got another one that said their entire pension had been debited out of their account, and they were given access to the Petro. And so this is just really awesome. I mean, this is such an indication of a genuine government trying to uplift and help their people get their monetary sovereignty when you start taking advantage of old people in your country, seizing the money out of their bank account that they literally count on to survive because of the crazy hyperinflation in your country, and replace it with a cryptocurrency that almost nobody accepts, that they're going to have to figure out how to use, and bury the option in the platform for managing these pensions to actually sell it back for bolivars so deep in the fucking menu that there's no way in hell the vast majority of these people are going to be able to figure out how to do it unless somebody presents them a guide. So let's give a round of applause to the fucking scumbag running that country, and to any of the idiots left out there thinking that this is in any way a genuine economic project being built, and not just a way for a deranged dictator to fucking line his pockets, try to fucking seize control of more money, and pretty much illegally tap into their oil reserves in some way.
Yeah, this was a crazy story, man. I mean, like, those Venezuelans are hurting, and you know, everybody, I mean, like, from the last story, people, you know, are trying to help, I mean, which way they can, but I mean, ultimately, I mean, yeah, it's just somebody running the game over there where, I mean, all this stuff, I mean, like, it's just straight out thievery is the way it feels. I mean, like, if you're just someone's pension right when it hits their bank account and you're switching it to your coin, that you're the only one that even really knows how it operates. I mean, like, I was looking through Twitter, and like mostly everybody digging through this story is like, okay, like, how exactly does this thing work? And like, what's the difficulty mean in this coin, and how exactly is the monetary policy going to function? And I mean, because it has switched from ETH to Nym to now it's its own blockchain. And I mean, like, you know, the inflation's horrible, but now you got this guy sitting on top, just sort of grabbing everybody's little value they have left. I mean, it's really bad over there. I mean, you know, I wish that there was you know, just more people over there to try and help the situation. But it's like one of those where you really just have to sit back and watch and hope that things for the best. I mean, it's one of those where the country's kind of got to shake this guy off and then come up with their own currency that they want to use. And I mean, maybe that's Bitcoin, maybe that's something they develop. I mean, but this is just one guy and his henchmen, and that's it. So I mean, yeah, it's an awful situation. It just seems like it's getting worse. And I mean, especially when you start looking into, you know, just these alliances that might be forming and everything. It's you know, it's, as far as looking through the trees at the forest of all these stories, I mean, it's looking bad for a whole segment really of the globe. But you know, we'll just keep watching and hoping for the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that the most important feature of cryptocurrencies is the fact that they're voluntary and that you should be able to adopt them whenever you want, or even not adopt them if you like. We make fun of no coiners all the time, but it's like, no, I mean, you have a perfect right to not touch this stuff, and maybe we don't even want you to touch it. But yeah, it doesn't matter to me whether it's called a cryptocurrency or whether it's fiat. If you're forcing people to use money, you haven't at all changed the monetary system. If you can just impose that on people, it makes no difference. The point of Bitcoin and why it was released is that people control their own money. They can decide, when to use it, when not to use it, and that's a very important feature. It doesn't matter if it has cryptocurrency in the name if you're still forcing people into your system.
Mm-hmm. And Russia recently weighed in on this with their finance minister, saying that their tax service and central bank have been looking at the Petro from Venezuela, but no more than that. As for payments, they're not happening yet. So despite all of the charades that Maduro is trying to pull, which has literally gotten to the point of seizing people's money and trying to force them to use it because they don't appear to actually want to, it seems like these plans for settling oil sales in the Petro aren't really developing too well either. With Russia, looking to kind of help Venezuela deal with American sanctions, but just not at all willing to jump into using the Petro for payments. And this is, something I brought up the last time. I think we really discussed in depth the talks between Russia and Venezuela regarding the Petro, is why on earth would another country risk interacting in a huge way with a cryptocurrency that is completely under your control? Like, why would they do that? Like, why would they expose themselves to that kind of risk to do any kind of sizable trading volume in something like oil? Like, it's effectively just funneling money into Venezuela's hands with no real guarantee of that token maintaining a value on an open market, with no guarantee at all that it'll even continue to be redeemed by Venezuela, given the huge forced measures that Maduro keeps taking to try to push its adoption, and the fact that their National Assembly has literally declared it illegal. I mean, it's like this is not anything genuine at all. And the whole time, Maduro keeps trying to spin these narratives and keeps trying to push its adoption. You still have Bitcoin volume in the currency skyrocketing. You still have small businesses and even major chains like their Walmart equivalent accepting actual cryptocurrencies. And I mean, as much as I think Dash is a piece of shit, and they're pretty much doing the exact same thing, taking advantage of the situation that Coinbase is, that apparently Church's Chicken has started accepting Dash after KFC denied any kind of plans to actually do that. So despite everything Maduro is doing, it is not the centrally minted shitcoin of the government that people are picking up. It's actual open public blockchains.
Yeah, I mean, like in this story with Russia, I'm just, like the yet, like that's where it gets me. And I mean, like, yeah, maybe it's not the Petro. I mean, obviously the Petro is kind of dog shit. So, I mean, like, yeah, they're going to have to come up with something, but you cannot. I mean, like, I am looking at this as just like, yeah, Russia and Iran are in talks in like ways that they can avoid US sanctions. And they've talked about settling with crypto. And the same goes with this discussion with Russia and Venezuela, and we know that India is going crazy about making this whole thing illegal, and I don't know. There's just too many kind of countries that I see like their incentives kind of aligning together to where maybe they do come up with something where it's like a permission system, and we'll see how well that enforcement of like making them use it goes, or if they support it. But I mean, like you're saying, I mean, like right now we are seeing the volume blow up in Bitcoin, and I mean that option's always going to be there, even if they do come up with something that will try to help them, move around resources without using the U.S. as an intermediary in any way. But that's the kind of the bigger picture scare thing I see, where like the Petro is just some nuance, some nuisance for right now. But I mean, like bigger picture, longer time frame, it's looking like these guys are going to try and build some system that they can all transact on, and just avoid the U.S. altogether.
Mm-hmm. All right, any last commentary, Janine?
Nope. I'm just waiting for Wallcoin.
Well, we'll get to that. That's last. Alrighty. So next up, some interesting news regarding Calvin Ayre and Bcash. So a while back, we covered Squire Mining Ltd, which was a ASIC manufacturer using Samsung for production, and then it came out that they actually had close ties to Coingeek and Calvin Ayre. Well, they are entering into an agreement with Coingeek to purchase the vast majority of Coingeek's ASIC hardware, which is almost an entire exahash, as well as the entire Coingeek media platform. So they're pretty much 62,000 or thereabout mining rigs in total, with the vast majority of them deployed in the United States and Kazakhstan, and a small amount of them in Canada. And this deal is going to be moving all of the hardware into Squire's control, as well as all deposits at hosting companies' facilities, as well as prepaid hosting time, and the entire Coingeek media platform. This is a non-binding agreement, so as of right now, like this could still wind up not going through, but they are planning on finalizing the deal by January 31st next year. And the interesting thing here is that a large amount of the payment for all of this is going to be in Squire shares. And so what this would effectively do is concentrate all of Coingeek's hash rate under Squire, a publicly traded company, and would make them, to my knowledge at least, the single largest mining operation in the world in terms of overall hash rate and hardware, and would leave Calvin in control of 53% of the outstanding shares of Squire Limited. So this is not exactly at all just Calvin selling everything and walking away. This is more like a corporate merger that is going to leave Calvin in control of the majority of shares, which pretty much gives him control over this company, which is publicly traded. So leaves the option of funding rounds of public investment, and depending on how any kind of changes to the outstanding stock are done, very well open the option of raising a large amount of money while leaving Calvin still in control, and effectively vertically integrate their actual mining operations with the ASIC production that Squire is engaged in now, which they are planning on taking commercial next year. And so effectively, what this is going to wind up doing is consolidating Calvin's mining operation and media company under one other company that he has controlling influence in, that is publicly traded, that has more options in terms of raising capital, and effectively become Bitmain 2.0, having already or not having to go through an initial IPO, everything being consolidated under an already public company, having their own ASIC manufacturing capabilities, as well as operating the mining equipment that they produce. And this company is going to go full retard into Bitcoin SV. And this is really, I think, an indication that although ABC is looking like its support is floundering and going to the wayside, Bitmain is on the verge of bankruptcy. What Calvin is doing here is actually a pretty intelligent consolidation of things and really setting themselves up to continue moving forward with SV in the long term. So they're pretty much reshuffling all the pieces on the board and getting themselves set up for a long game. Like, they are not going to just fade away, at least in the short term, like Bitmain. They're not going to collapse into bankruptcy. And I think really the fact that they've been mining Bitcoin heavily and not just Bcash when it's more profitable, it shows that Calvin, at least compared to Jihan, has been a lot more intelligent in terms of capital allocation, and that they are not going to just fade away like the other half of the Bcash community, and that they are really positioning themselves, I think, to continue trying to be a thorn in Bitcoin's side for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, man. Like, I was just reading through this tweet that came out with it, and it looks like BitMEX has also kind of identified that the former in-chain CEO Stephen Matthews owns 9% of Squire. So yeah, with that 53% and 9%, talk about really a majority. And yeah, I mean, does show like a lot more activity on the BSV side than the ABC when it comes to try and play the long game on this. And well, that whole thing, I've been trying to keep up with Roger's videos that he's putting out and talking about this and interviews and everything. And I mean, they're just playing like none of this is really happening in their Bitcoin Cash, and the fork is just a difference of agreement on an opcode, and that's it. But yeah, I mean, like you're saying, I mean, these stories line up. I mean, it looks like Bitmain and ABC or BAB or whatever we want to call it is definitely floundering, while BSV looks like they're setting up for the long game. And yeah, I mean, they might be a thorn in our side for a little while, but they'll probably knock Bcash out, and then we're gonna have to make an argument over what is Bitcoin again, or who knows. It's a constant battle over here. We'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. And on the other side of the fence, another announcement from BTC King. Apparently, according to his sources, Jihan is pretty much walking away from Bcash and has actually started liquidating a lot of its stash low key to pay off their more than $500 million debt to TSMC. And as this news is leaking out, not only the past credibility of this account in terms of information, but just the the price right now for both Bcashes is ridiculous. I think together they're around 5% of the Bitcoin price, and each of them is only worth like only 2% or something together. And it's, we're either going to watch both of them get pummeled to the ground and find out whether SV actually has enough support to absorb that large amount of coins being dumped, or we're going to see a separation and potentially ABC go down the drain while SV hold steady, depending on how much money people like Calvin are actually willing to dump into the market and absorb this kind of loss. But given the financial situation that Bitmain is in, I do not see any attempt coming to just drop either of them into the floor. And I see it much more likely that this is going to be a slow tactical dump, taking into account market liquidity to really maximize what they're getting out of this, because this is letting go of a large amount of their capital to try and pay off these debts. And they're going to want to minimize how much of that they have to let go to do that as possible, because it's just not, it would not at all, given Bitmain's financial situation, be rational to just dump everything into the ground when much more gradually you'll get a better return in terms of fiat to actually pay these debts.
Yeah, I mean, BTC King, he's been on top of these leaks. I mean, so, I mean, it's just, yeah, not pretty over there, man. I mean, we'll see how long they have to sustain. I mean, I'm kind of just thinking about how many months left can they be around before we start seeing something like, ABC fall to the wayside or Bitmain file for bankruptcy. We'll see.
Alrighty, next up, how many we got? 4 more left. So, cybersecurity firm Bad Packets has uncovered a mass scan campaign looking for exposed ports on the internet. And what kind of exposed ports are they looking for? Ethereum RPC ports. And they've been finding a decent amount of open ports out there for mining equipment and different wallets. And really, the scary thing here is that a lot of mining equipment and software ships without a default password. So unless users actually manually configure them, you are talking about a huge amount of wallets and mining hardware that are pretty much just open to remote control with no authentication required whatsoever.
That's not good, man. Like all the stuff going on with Ethereum. I mean, like everybody's hurting right now, but we've seen like a lot of the Ethereum guys, getting laid off and everything. But this could be big trouble, man. It's always something right around the corner there with those guys.
Well, I mean, if they're planning to go to proof of stake and the Ethereum Foundation or whatever wants to keep, enough influence, maybe it's a feature, not a bug.
I mean, the funny thing is, like, this is the second time that this kind of attack has been pulled on Ethereum infrastructure. And it's like, seriously, guys?
All your stake is mine. All my stake.
Yikes. It's gonna be ugly.
Yeah, this is just like this. I like really at this point, like how many like fuck ups like this really need to be seen before everybody realizes Ethereum is just a giant dumpster fire. Like the core protocol is garbage. The people running the infrastructure necessary for the network continuously fuck up the most basic things to actually secure it. Like it's just die already.
I don't know, man. There's just like too much damn interest in that thing. Like, I don't know if you saw something about a no action letter with the SEC where they were talking about Ethereum could get a pass with that, where it's like there's no action required because of the fact that it's sufficiently decentralized now. Like, I mean, these guys just have, they paid all the right people to say the right things. It's really like you don't see. Yeah, I mean, there's just been a lot of stuff about where, okay, how come the price doesn't reflect what's going on here? And I mean, it's just like the market is irrational still. And I think most of these people are just, my bags, my bags.
Yeah, I'll just say this. Like, I mean, you know, for all the interesting things that Ethereum may do, I won't pay attention to it in any serious way. Like, I won't consider it serious until they at least have multi-sig. Like, I'm sorry, it's just embarrassing to call it a smart contract platform when you don't even have multi-sig. I don't know how that happened. I don't know why they think that that's acceptable. It's so weird to me that they've gone 3 years now and they still don't have a consumer-facing multi-sig. It's just bonkers.
I think they would tell you something like, "Oh, but what about CryptoKitties or Parody or the DAO?" It's like all those. What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, but I mean, like, all the applications that they tout, most of them are not actually decentralized, either because they're using Infura to host all of it. I mean, a lot of Ethereum is hosted on Infura anyway. But even these smart contracts, it's like you don't even own your CryptoKitties. All of the art is copyrighted by the artist who made it. So, like, you don't own any of it. It's not decentralized at all.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really gets my nerves going with Ethereum is just the whole Vitalik worship thing, where you see him on Twitter. Like, I saw him like a week ago, I want to say, where it was like him and like Vitalik and Vlad going back and forth for like a day, making up language and just like trying to figure out a way to basically come up with their own definitions for their own words. But yeah, I mean, like I was just saying, like, the Ethereum guys would say like they do have multi-sig with some of those projects, but it's like, yeah, but you're just going to get your funds frozen, or they're going to they're not really decentralized, they're not what they are, like so that's probably what feedback we would get.
But what did you say, Rick? CryptoKitties, the DAO, and what?
The Parody wallet.
Okay. CryptoKitties, Rare Pepe, DAO, Bisq, Parity Wallet. Bitcoin has multi-sig as part of the core, and it's not subject to random fuck ups.
Yeah, so yeah, when I say multi-sig, I don't mean, a smart contract token thing that was spun up in a few months that hasn't been rigorously tested at all. Like, there's no multi-sig, right, consumer-facing multi-sig for Ether. There may be for some obscure token or whatever if they implement that, but there isn't for Ether, and I find that really weird.
Yeah, it's just a crazy thing going on over there with a lot of these different, just even the name consensus and all that confusion and the way they like to just, create words, and, it's all kind of magic over there. And the minute you start bringing some reality to them, they get upset, and they bury down into this idea of like, no, this is going to work. Global meme computer, something or another. But we'll see. I mean, like once they do this thing to try and scale, and maybe that'll fail, and then maybe eventually we'll start to see the project go belly up. But for right now, it's like they just got too many people paid in the right direction or something, to where you don't really see any market moves with the news or any sort of enforcement action as to what exactly they are.
Yeah, there's a reason that I said dumpster fire, because that's what a veteran Wall Street trader said when he was shown the ETH chart.
Yeah, I saw that tweet too.
Alrighty, though. More problems in the world of Ethereum. So Pantera Capital set up an ICO hedge fund a while back. And according to them, up to 25% of the projects that they invested in might be illegal securities, in which case they're going to have to refund all of their investors. Their price is going to plummet. The teams who've already spent most of that money trying to actually build out what they promised to build out are going to be scrambling to even come up with the money to pay the investors back. And a quarter of their fund is going to get completely wrecked.
Yeah, and they say that's what they think, right? About a quarter. Like these hedge funds, like usually they're the ones that are just the dumb money, just spitting out stuff across the board. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe even more than that. I mean, there's a lot of these ICOs to where, I mean, like just thinking about it, like, okay, like how many are actually like got a legit project behind them? Okay, out of that, how many didn't have like a pre-sale or something where they couldn't? I mean, it's a very small number. So, I mean, like, it's hard to imagine it really is just 25%. Maybe they're just like setting up the news for a stark reality for their investors.
Mm. And only about a third of these projects actually have live platforms right now. So those funds have probably gone through most of what they raised in the ICO. And the rest of them don't actually have a working product right now. So they're just completely fucked. I mean, in terms of what this could actually mean for valuation of Pantera's fund, the third that actually have live products could possibly survive trading with some kind of market value. Although I think that's unlikely given that there'd be no actual group continuing development of them. But the ones that don't have any kind of live product right now, there is absolutely no fundamental reason for them to continue trading at a market value without expectation of something actually being released. So those, if these are deemed securities and have to refund everybody, are just gone. Like those are pretty much going to be completely wiped off Pantera's books.
Oh man, yeah, that ICO craziness was nuts last year. I mean, and everybody was just coming in with that fervor, and yeah, eventually that's going to come back to bite you.
I mean, just related to ICOs or failed ICOs in general, we are now at December 15th, which means we are 2 months past the failed civil token sale. And they originally said that they were going to be doing a new token sale within weeks, not months. Well, it's 2 months now, so that makes it months, not weeks. Oops. And still no announcement for when or if they're actually going to do the next one. I just see them mostly retweeting some of the the funny part is that the civil account is tweeting, retweeting newsrooms that they've partnered with, and like, look, they're using the civil platform. But that's kind of, I feel like that's going to bite them in the ass, because if they're like, you can use our platform and you don't even need our token yet, then it's like, okay, your token then has what utility? So I don't feel like this is going to end well.
Yeah, I've been seeing like yeah, like some of these projects they're getting forked and just taking the token out. So, but yeah, like that civil token sale, that was all kind of checked up from the beginning.
Wrecked. All right. 2 more to go. So next up, some interesting development in Germany, where some of the people from the legacy system seem to be wanting to follow in the footsteps of players in America. The Stuttgart Exchange Group, the second largest stock exchange in Germany, is partnering with Solaris Bank to build out a zero-fee crypto exchange. And this is something they actually talked about earlier this year as just a possibility going forward, but they've actually announced this partnership and are projecting a launch sometime in the first half of next year. So they're going to be very tightly integrating with Solaris Bank in the back end in terms of facilitating the fiat side of things. And really what they're trying to do here is pretty much just create as much of a tight integration as possible between the legacy fiat system and crypto, so that there's like directly partnering with a bank like this, there's not going to be the kinds of issues that a lot of exchanges deal with in terms of banking relationships and partnerships. And the press release is announcing to begin they'll be trading Bitcoin and Ethereum options, and are going to be working on an ICO platform, which I'm assuming is more tailored towards things that are actually compliant with German securities laws and actually registered, as opposed to the kind of silly nonsense that we were just talking about. But this is kind of showing everybody's been so focused over the last few months about Wall Street in America and Backed and NASDAQ that nobody's really paying attention to those kind of developments in other countries. And we've seen the stock exchange 6 in Switzerland start integrating more tightly with the crypto ecosystem. Now the second biggest exchange in Germany making similar steps. I mean, it kind of goes without saying this is going to create the same kind of dynamic that it will in America. Like, the more that this ecosystem kind of tightly interweaves itself with legacy institutions and legacy markets, the harder it's going to be to unseat. Like, the more this is legitimized, the more massive capital flows in here, the more unrealistic it's going to be for jurisdictions wherever this is happening to be able to try and turn around and do what India is doing and just outright ban cryptocurrency altogether and make it illegal. Like, once it's been legitimized to that degree and really started integrating into the overall economy, like, that's just practically no longer going to be an option, both because of the economic consequences that would have, but just also realistically because a lot of people in this aspect of society have a heavy amount of influence in government. Like, that's just a reality. Like, the economy is what really drives a country. And this is one of the instances in which, so to say, the tail wags the dog. If enough of the big moneyed interests are set on doing something, then that's likely what the government that they're connected to is going to wind up doing.
Yeah, I think this is great thing for people in Germany as far as getting access to crypto and cryptocurrencies, through an exchange that they're comfortable with. And I mean, like you were saying, I mean, SIX has already done that, and the NASDAQ setting up the backed. It's like I know a lot of people are talking about price this time of year, and it's just like these are the kind of stories that really show, there are big institutional people that are setting up the infrastructure and the structure to where, the next go round where people do want to come into the system, there's just going to be so many more on ramps for people to actually have access to that. And, I mean, we're all in these different cycles, but I mean, like, as far as, trying to push back on that narrative, I mean, it's stories like this that you just can't ignore. I mean, people can't ignore the price, but this is, pretty big deals.
Yeah, this is about more than just about the fundamental structure of the overall market and what that implies for the fundamentals, not just, price moon. Like, these kinds of developments have serious consequences for how deeply Bitcoin entrenches itself overall in society. I think, I don't know, I'm not going to try to really break down the entire thing, but I think, like, everybody should look at Trace Mayer's breakdown about different levels of network effects. Like, a network effect, has many different layers and poles to it. And you really want to see all of those growing and penetrating deeper to really ensure Bitcoin entrenches itself in things. Like, you need all of them. You need the technical network effects. You need the economic network effects. You need the legislative network effects. Like, all of these different things need to grow in tandem, or you're going to have weak spots where there is opportunity to undermine or unseat things. And
Yeah,
I guess that kind of puts us, I guess, Janine, it's time. No,
it's my computer's protesting.
It's wall time. So,
it's wall time.
The last story and the most retarded one, Warren Davidson, a congressman from Ohio, is suggesting to fund the border wall that Trump promised during his election campaign, we should launch WallCoin and crowdfund the money to build the wall with cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I can't think of a better way of using a decentralized blockchain that is supposed to be borderless and not recognize nationality than to use it to crowdfund a wall to make a border. Yeah. I'm sure people who care about cryptocurrencies will be really enthusiastic about that.
Hey, yeah, Ohio again coming out strong with the brilliant ideas. I mean, like, yeah, this is just like one of those. Whenever I saw it, it was almost like, is this a joke? But I mean, I don't, I don't know. I mean, like, I could totally see them trying to do something like this to try and get that wall built. And I mean, a lot of people, they still are coming in this thinking the wrong things, and we'll. Yeah, this is like almost just a joke. I mean, I don't even really know what to say other than, like, I guess it's just like the new way they're going to try and fundraise for legislative action, because the legislation doesn't work anymore as far as stuff going on in Washington. Like, when you're talking about network effects, I'm thinking like the whole Washington network effect is broke, and yeah, I guess they're going to try and route around that with this, but I highly doubt it's actually well planned out or well thought out.
I'm going to just go out on a limb here. I'm going to make a wild assumption. And I'm going to bet that there is an insane list of regulations based on, what governments can do with budgets, how they're allowed to manage budgets, how they're allowed to source money for budgets, that make this wildly illegal on more levels than I could even comprehend. And like I'm just going out on a limb here, but I'm willing to bet that's the legal situation with this one.
Yeah, but Shinobi, this is the US government we're talking about. They can source their money from wherever the fuck they want. They can source it from Saudi Arabia. They can source it from the countries that they're invading. They can source it from money laundering. They can source it from anywhere they want. It doesn't matter. Because who's going to put them in jail? Oh, you want to put them in jail? Okay, we're going to build a wall around you. We'll fund it with WallCoin, the illegal coin that we're not going to get put in jail for using.
Oh my God, Handy ran in the chat. You are the best. He says that they say crypto is money for terrorists, so this must be validation that governments are terrorists.
That is a good one, man. Great.
Make America terrorable again.
Oh no, that's awful. But yeah, like I really do see them just at least getting some sort of bootstrapping this thing, and maybe even some dollars towards it before somebody steps in and say, yeah, you're breaking laws doing this, and then maybe they'll back down quickly.
I have to be honest, when I first saw the name for this thing, I misread it as Wall Street coin, and that was way more funny.
Yeah.
Alrighty though. I guess that's that's a wrap, and we're into the thoughts.
Curves it off nicely. I'll just start off saying, final thoughts. We got the Bitcoin and beer meetup in Denver on Tuesday. So if you're flying through and you got like a layover or something on Tuesday evening, stop through, have a beer in Denver. And on Wednesday, we got the Bitcoin engineer meetup here in Boulder, where we're going to, try and go through everything with Bitcoin in the stack to see how it all shapes up, and if you can, find some place in there that interests you. So that's going on, and just final, like, hats off again to Timothy May. Like, just bad news there, but fight keeps going on.
And give me just a sec to get this loaded, Janine. Beep boop. Beep boop. Alrighty. Go.
All right, so I have 3. The first one is from Ragnar because he retweeted this prediction from last year on December 15th, where he said that he predicted that Jihanwoo's monopoly on miners or mining would end. I guess that one came to fruition pretty much.
Yeah.
Because Bitmain's about to go down. So I just thought that was funny. The second one, because we were talking about Samourai Wallet and how a bunch of people are not appreciative enough of what they're doing, you should read this infographic from Patricia about privacy in UTXO and how mixing UTXOs or spending the wrong one or whatever can fuck you. Definitely. So you should read that to understand, because a lot of the problems with UTXOs, that is what Samourai Wallet focuses on. So maybe you'll appreciate them a bit more after reading it.
Yeah, gonna have to check that out myself.
Alrighty.
And the third one, while we were on air, Nick Szabo tweeted about the news that Timothy May passed away, and he said he was my chief cypherpunk inspiration, his vision of a cyberspace free from government oppression. I assume his vision is of a cyberspace free from government oppression. I was further blessed to be able to hang out with him and Vetch. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Does anyone know?
I think you nailed it.
Kvetch.
Vetch about our crazy world. We'll miss you greatly, Tim. And then he links to a bunch of resources from Tim May that he worked on.
Yeah, such a sad thing on that.
It's kvetch. It's Yiddish for bitch and complain.
All right. Yeah, if it's Yiddish, then it probably is kvetch.
Oh, and one last thing. I've made this joke before, but someone in the troll box said that I'm hot. I would just like to inform you all that's very cold where I am. I'm definitely not hot. I don't know how you would know my temperature anyway.
All right, guys. Come on. Keep it in your pants.
We're almost done here, guys.
Alrighty. I guess, yeah, it's, it sucks to lose Tim. I just hope that, his family and friends deal with that. I'm sure they're probably feeling the loss way more than everybody else who was dragged into the philosophy that is cypherpunk by him, but to some degree, all of us are. So, thanks for everything, Tim. And on that note, we will see you guys all not on Wednesday, but Thursday, and then back to the normal schedule. So adios, everybody.
Later, everyone.
Auf Wiedersehen. 3 lanes.